Hey guys, so it's been a while. I don't know when I did my last journal update where I just kind of talk about whatever's going on at the moment, like if there's anything I specifically want to talk about, because these are just a little different than my updates, this is more of just like rambling, and I need to get there's just stuff that I feel like I need to talk about, so I'm just gonna do one today just because at my last maternal fetal medicine appointment, it did not go well, and I got news that was really confusing and scary. And when you're given so much information at one time that you've never heard before, it's really overwhelming. But I've done a lot of reading. Honestly, the places I go to read are not necessarily articles, because those usually end up being the absolute worst thing. If you're having, not even in pregnancy, but in general, if you're having some kind of a symptom and you look it up, it's basically gonna tell you you have cancer. So, well, I have read a few things about my kind of diagnosis and everything in articles. Mostly I started out on Reddit reading other people's experiences, and then I joined a Facebook group, which that has been so freaking helpful to me and so reassuring, and also scary because things don't always turn out for people. But wanted to talk about a bit more about what IUGR, which is intrauterine growth restriction, means, along with an echogenic bowel, which is just that the bowel is more bright on an ultrasound, and just kind of talk about everything that I've learned and other people's experiences and outcomes and stuff like that. So currently also I'm waiting for the baby to move. We were so freaking busy at work today. I couldn't even tell you the last time I felt it. I did feel it though at work. At one point I was I note it in my head every single time now, just because I'm scared. But I just ate some food and some key lime pie, so if the baby's gonna start moving, it's probably gonna be soon because of the sugar and all that stuff. And it makes me feel so much better, so I'm hoping he or she will start kicking soon. But so I joined this Facebook group, and first of all I wrote my own experience and asked if anybody had the same thing happen. And it's just amazing how other people have literally had the same news. Baby in the less than first percentile, so you're diagnosed with severe intrauterine growth restriction. I don't know why I can't say that, and on top of it, babies also had bowels that were lit up. Now, in regards to the bowel being lit up, what sucks about that is it can point to just so many things, or it can literally be nothing. It being lit up by itself, if the baby was a normal size, I don't think they would be that worried about it, because then 60 to 80% of the time it resolves by itself later in the pregnancy and usually means nothing. Or it can mean things like cystic fibrosis, which I've had the blood work done for. I'm not a carrier, and I believe both parents have to be a carrier in order for the baby to end up with it. So that was negative. We're good on that. Had blood work done twice for infections. The first time I know it was negative. This last time the blood work's up, but I'm just always scared to go look at it, just because sometimes certain blood works will tell the gender of the baby on them, and I don't know which ones do and which ones don't. I knew the NIPT testing would, and that is why I had to have someone else look at it for me. But I didn't look it up, also because I was if I have some kind of serious infection, they better freaking call me and let me know, So I assume it's negative. So I've had that stuff done. And then, like I said, the NIPT rolls out. Well, it doesn't necessarily roll out, but it very, very strongly suggests that the baby does not have trisomy 18, 21, or 13. I believe 21, either 21 or 18 is Down syndrome, and the other two are chromosomal abnormalities that a baby would not be able to live with. So it was, even though I didn't want to get those done in the beginning, after the doctor said the baby was measuring small and I did get them done, it did give me a lot of reassurance, because I'm okay, more than likely, at least I know it's not those three things. What I'm saying is I've had all the testing done that I can have, aside from an amniocentesis, which I'm not going to do because there's just risks to it. And even if I found out something, I wouldn't do anything about it. Like, I would continue, even though if it wasn't as risky, I think it would be nice to do it, because then at least you know, and you don't have to wonder. But because of the risks of like a 1 in 500 chance that the baby could die, which alone is terrifying, because I kind of just thought to myself, like, if someone said, like, you go into a room with 499 other people and you have a chance of dying, you could also, like, win $1 million or something like that. Would I do it? No, probably not, because those odds are still terrifying. That's just too, like, that's just, mm-mm. And then on top of it, there's also a risk of breaking my water, which I do not want to happen, because if this baby is tiny, it needs to stay in as long as they can possibly keep it in until there's like a reason to absolutely take it out. So I didn't do that. But anyways, other than that, there's not really any. He said there are some other things, but they're not really great. And they can give like false answers sometimes, which is not helpful at all. So I've gone as far as I can go as far as that. And the only way I'm really going to know anything is if they see anything on an ultrasound. But anyways, so a lot of people who have had the exact same experience as me, I'm pretty sure all the ones that replied to me, their babies survived, and they had to. One thing I am noticing though is when you get a diagnosis of growth restriction, it's pretty freaking accurate. Like, I've spent hours reading people's stories on there from the time they were diagnosed, and then gone to their pages and seen like if they've had the baby, how big the baby was. And it seems like, for the most part, even though there can be some inaccuracy with ultrasounds, it seems like they're pretty freaking accurate. Or at least, even if they're not like perfect, I think I just felt the baby move. But even if they're not perfect, it's pretty obvious that, like, if it looks like it's growing small, it probably is growing small. Because, like, all of these people's babies came out so small, which is really scary. But most of them came out pretty healthy. Had to be in the NICU, some of them longer than others, but a lot of it was just for what they call feed and grow, which is because a lot of hospitals won't let you leave with your baby unless it's over, like, 4 or 5 pounds. And then there were some, of course, that had trouble with their lungs still being underdeveloped, or regulating their body temperature, or their sugar, just things like that. But, like, all the ones that responded to me on my post had good outcomes. Now, some of the ones that I read about did not have good outcomes. Some of them also had more than just what mine was. Like, they were severely restricted a bowel, and then there was a couple other things that were noted as well. And unfortunately, when I would go and try to look at more recent posts, some of their babies did not make it. They either were passed away inside the mother, or they were born and they did not make it out of the hospital, which is incredibly sad and really, really scary. It's just very scary in general that IUGR does make the risk for stillbirth higher. Like, it's very scary because you're already scared of that with a regular pregnancy. Everyone's always going to be scared that you could get all the way to the end or close to the end and lose your baby. But then with them saying, like, well, this makes it an even bigger chance, it just makes it so scary. Like, that's the thing I'm the most scared of. I'm not scared of my baby coming out and being disabled or having some kind of issue. That's not what scares me. It's just that I could notice one day that I haven't felt it move and go and get it checked, and there can no longer be a heartbeat. And that is the part that just terrifies me. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. Like, there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. It's not my fault that it is growth restricted. And it could also, I want to go ahead and say right now, like, this is what I think. The doctor seems to think that it's going to end up being a genetic issue. Like a chromosomal thing or something maybe smaller, but like sickle cell anemia, something like that. But I've just read so many stories, and I personally think they're going to end up finding something is wrong with the placenta. It was noted in my 20-week ultrasound and at my first maternal fetal medicine ultrasound that my placenta is a bit larger than normal. And I don't know, to me that just seems like a little hint that like, okay, something's going on with the placenta. I don't know. Like, that is one thing I need to do more research on, is why the placenta would be bigger and what that could mean. Because a lot of times the placenta is small and that's a problem, or they can see that it's calcifying. There were times when babies were born and they found knots in the cord, or on an ultrasound, they found that there was only one, oh gosh, I can't think of what it's called, but it's like the cord is small, like really small, so it was way harder to get all the nutrients into the baby. Sometimes it backed up and started flowing backwards, and that's a time when you've got to get the baby out, because it's no longer getting anything. It's not going to grow, and it can literally like stop, it can die. So there's that. And then there's people who have their baby's been born and their placentas, when they came out, just like fell apart because they were so bad, but they did not catch that on an ultrasound. And I just wonder if that's the case, or something like that, because like I said, it was noted that my placenta was a bit bigger than normal. And even though he says he couldn't see anything on ultrasound, I just read so many people's stories where they didn't see anything, and then when it came out, they were like, oh, this is why, because it was like calcifying, and the baby was not like, it's where its source is supposed to come from, is the placenta. That's what takes care of the baby after a certain amount of time. And that's what I was gonna say, another reason that makes me think it might be that is because at the 10-week scan, everything was perfect. The baby was actually measuring like a couple days ahead, and at that time the placenta is not really the thing that is sustaining the baby. And so it's just interesting to me that the baby was like on track, even like a little bit bigger than it should have been, especially with me knowing that my due date is actually a little bit off, because I know when I ovulated, and the baby was measuring ahead, and when really I was thinking the whole time it would be measuring 2 or 3 days behind. So the placenta starts taking over, from what I've read, around 13 plus weeks. And it's just interesting to me that it was a perfectly normal size until the placenta started being the main thing that took care of the baby. And ever since then, it's just declined. So that's what I think, but I'm not a doctor. I could be wrong. I'm probably just really hoping it's not something more serious, even though placental issues can be extremely dangerous. And like I said, if it comes to the point where they do ultrasounds more often and they see the baby hasn't grown in like a week or something, then they got to get the baby out. Like, there's nothing else you can do. So they can be just as dangerous as something else, but I also am like, well, that if it is a placenta, that also gives it a chance that it could continue at least giving the baby the nutrients, and it might just stay in a small percentile. So this is like ridiculously long for a diary. I don't really mean for these to be this long, but I just wanted to throw all that out there because I've learned a lot more since the day when they told me all this information, and hearing it straight from other people who have been through it is like the best thing for my anxiety. Like, it just helps me so much. The only thing that is pretty scary about it is that, like I said, even the ones that had a good outcome, their babies were pretty small. So I am betting on having an early induction, possibly even a C-section, which is scary to me. I never really wanted to have that happen, but I am kind of betting on that they won't let me get all the way to my due date. If anything, they try really hard to keep the baby in until 37 weeks, but there was a lot of people whose babies came out at about 34 to 35 weeks. So, which, if that were the case, it's insane to think that that could be like 8 weeks from now. So it's really crazy, but we'll just have to keep going. I have to keep going to my appointments and see what happens. And like, just literally all people are just like, take it day by day, and that's literally all you can do, which sucks when you're scared every day. And I'm hoping they don't terrify me and tell me more bad information at my next appointment. Like, I'd love to get like a tiny bit of good information, or like just like, tell me the baby's in the 2 percentile now. Tell me that the bowel is not as lit up. Tell me it's like resolved itself. Just don't find something else, Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. It's a lot, and you probably didn't watch this whole thing, but it's good for me too, to be able to look back on it someday and just remember everything I was feeling and all the emotions that I had to go through. But yeah, that's everything. And what am I today? 26 weeks, 5 days. So I'll be 27 weeks soon, and I'm just freaking praying we can make it like past 30 weeks and keep the baby in and keep everything good and healthy. So that's my goal for the moment, and I will continue to have goals. But right now I'm like, let's just please make it to at least 30 weeks. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye guys.